Movies and Martinis celebrates women and diversity in the entertainment world
by ranking trending movies, shows, and books
with two completely different perspectives and ranked by delicious martinis.
Listen to find out how many martinis we felt it was worth.
And learn about the women who have written, performed, and/or directed in everything we have rated.
A new episode is available every Thursday on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. What's up, everyone? Welcome to our podcast. I'm Priya.
And I'm Mercy. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. We have a real special announcement today, Priya.
Yes, today is our first ever Books and Martinis episode, and this is
finally
it's a spinoff of Movies and Martinis. We're always talking about books, always talking about the films that are inspired by books, and today we are kicking off with an amazing best-selling author, Ron Felber.
Yes. Hey, Ron, welcome. We're so excited to have you. So excited.
I'm honored to be on your first show.
Thank you. Yes, it's our kickoff, so we're really psyched about this. We had a list of authors, but none that could stand next to you. So we're so happy that you decided to join us, and we can't wait to talk about your book.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Ron has a new book coming out. It's not on shelves yet. It's not available on Amazon until March. It's The Unwelcome, The Curious Case of Clara, Fowler. And it's coming out in March, and we're so excited to talk about this book. Mercy's read the whole thing. I'm about to read it, and we're going to find out all about the book today with this interview. So let's get started. I'm so excited. Okay, so Ron.
Yes.
We have to kick this off for our movies and book community. I want to hear a little bit about yourself before we start with the meat and potatoes of the interview. Tell our listeners and our viewers about who Ron Felber is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a bit of a background like most people in terms of writing. I started writing when I was 12. I was in the 6th grade, and I had a teacher. I remember her name, Miss Dorsey. And Miss Dorsey, we had a typical sort of essay segment where you write about your favorite athlete or what you did for the summer or whatever, that kind of essay for the 6th grade. So I came back with an essay on Willie Mays, the baseball player. And she said, this isn't the best essay, but it's the most unique essay. You have a unique way of seeing the world. And it's very good. And so I encourage you to keep writing. And so then I started writing short stories. And in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I was getting my short stories published in my brother's high school magazine. They had a literary magazine called the K-Rex at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. And he would bring them into the priest there. The priest liked the writing, so they'd actually publish my stuff, even though I wasn't in that high school yet. Although I did eventually go into that high school, and I became editor of the magazine.
Wow.
So from there, I won an award for Best Short Story and got a scholarship to Marquette University for 1 year. And then I transferred to Georgetown University. And it's a good thing that I did, because that's where I met William Peter Blatty while he was filming The Exorcist. And that's how I got the story, the background story for The Unwelcomed. He literally gave me that story.
What was your relationship with him?
I have to say, what a wonderful man. He died about 7 years ago, but what a wonderful guy. So I was this kid with a manuscript with typos all through it, and my first novel. He was filming, one of the biggest movies ever, The Exorcist, in Georgetown with Billy Friedkin. All the roads were closed off. They had fog machines and whatnot. And so I said, I've got to meet this guy and give him my manuscript, because if he reads it, he'll like it, and maybe he'll help me get it published. So it wasn't easy to meet him, but finally I found out they were staying at the Key Bridge Marriott across from Georgetown, across the Potomac. So I went there. He wasn't there, but an admin was, and I begged her to pass it along to Blatty. She looked behind, and there were a stack of dozens and dozens of books, a mountain of manuscripts. She said, I'll put it with the others.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm just like he was. He went to Georgetown. I said, he wanted to be a writer. I said, I'm a sophomore, just like him. He's from the Bronx, New York. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I said, we both come from, have scholarships for merit scholarships. I said, we're very, very similar. I'm just like he was. Just tell him that. She said, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to make any promises, but I'll give him the book. I'll pass it along to him. I'll do that much. And sure enough, we went on vacation for Thanksgiving. I went back home to New Jersey from Washington. And who do I get a phone call but William Peter Blatty saying, I love your manuscript. When you come back from the holiday, come see me and we'll discuss it. So he didn't help me publish that book, but he helped me publish my next one. And he gave me the story, this wonderful story for the Unwelcome.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to create this manuscript for the Unwelcome? What was your process like?
It was 50 years. How about that?
Oh, wow.
You got to remember, he gave me this story when I was in college. So then once I got out of college, I tried to write it, but frankly, I just didn't have the skill. It's a complex story, a lot of psychology, a lot of changes in time because you're dealing with turn of the century.
Right.
Some of the characters are William James, the famous abnormal psychologist from Harvard, takes place in Boston. Sigmund Freud is a character. So you're dealing with these very heavyweight characters at the turn of the century. And for a novice writer, it's very difficult to change time frames. So it's fairly easy to write in 2024. I'm writing a story about 2024, but go back to 1898. What clothes do people wear? What did the streets of Boston look like then? What was Harvard University like then? What was Beacon Hill like? What was Sigmund Freud like? How would he talk?
What brand of cigarettes were they smoking? I saw.
Absolutely. Exactly.
The little details.
Which is what gives credibility to a story. So this is a true story. And actually what Blatty had done was say, go to Harvard University Medical School. And in the library there are the records of this incredible case of Clara Fowler with Dr. Morton Prince, William James, and the head of the Society for Psychical Research, Richard Hodgson. So they had a team that included a clairvoyant, Leonora Piper, the head of the president of the American Psychical Society, Richard Hodgson, George Waterman, who was the heir to the Waterman-Penn dynasty,
right,
and Dr. Morton Prince, who was the lead psychiatrist, also a Harvard Medical School graduate and lecturer. This team studied this woman for 5 years and eventually cured her. She displayed all of the symptoms and signs of demonic possession.
Wow.
This was imagine in the year 1898, the most prominent doctors in the country studying a woman who speaks in languages that are unknown to her, Aramaic, Latin, Greek, who talks in a man's voice, clearly a different personality than the one that they witnessed. The original woman, Clara Fowler, has visitations from the Virgin Mary. So she's very saintly, very religious. And this demonic presence is just like totally evil. And it becomes a story of murder, science, and the paranormal. It's just extraordinary. So I'm forever thankful that that I learned of this story from Bill Blatty, and matter of fact, I dedicate the book to him.
Yes, I was reading it, and it breaks it even deeper than that, because you have Clara, and then you have the demon, but then you also have the woman that she is behind these two entities. And I was talking to Priya earlier, and I told her from the minute I read the first sentence until I read the last one, I couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. Every time I had to stop for something, I was so mad. And this is not my type of book. This is not something I would read or watch. I don't watch scary movies. It terrifies me.
So she doesn't usually read gore. And
Ever.
because her review, I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, was just like, this is amazing. I couldn't stop reading it. I was like, Mercy,
Yes.
what didn't you like? And then she was
Right.
like, the gore.
Yeah.
Well,
it was very,
you know,
it was graphic, but it
it's
was
a true
necessary.
story. It's
It
a
was
true story.
necessary.
And this is the incredible thing. Actually, Prince wrote a book, and it's out of print now for many years. But it's look, that's how old it is. Okay. It's called
Wow.
Dissociation of a Personality. And this book, along with all of his notes, transcripts from the sessions, the psychiatric sessions, the hypnotic sessions,
Which, by the way, let me interrupt you
letters.
for 1 second,
Yeah.
happened in his house with his wife and his little girl in the house,
Yeah,
which all become part of the story towards the end, and it's terrifying. And
Wow.
goodness, go, yes.
yeah, actually, you have a better reaction than some. If you just said, I don't like the gore. I talked to somebody that had read the manuscript. I passed it along for proofreading, said they hadn't slept for 3 nights. So
Oh, I wasn't
Oh,
even faced.
man.
I wasn't faced by it. I think because I'm very visual, and
yeah,
I was only reading it, so I wasn't watching a movie at a big screen
yes,
of that sort, and I was prepared for it. So even when
yes.
I read the goriest things, it was okay because it was part of a bigger picture in my mind.
Yeah, and it's
But
fairly
I really enjoyed it.
it's intricate because really it becomes a sort of murder mystery.
Right.
You've got
Yes.
this wonderful character, Rufus Bassett Hilliard.
Yes, I loved him.
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character? That's something I
my
want to
favorite
ask.
character.
Bassett was your favorite character. Look
Well,
at
you
that.
know, again, you've read the book, so you know. But here's a guy that was upwardly mobile, very bright. You know, was promoted rapidly. Was promoted in the military rapidly. Comes back from the service, becomes the city marshal in, I think, 4 years. Graduates up quickly. Becomes sort of almost a political figure because he marries the daughter of a prominent judge.
Right.
And everything is on track for the best career in the world until a couple of things happen. One is he investigates, and this is true, the Lizzie Borden axe murders in Fall River. So he's the Fall River marshal. So these are gruesome murders.
Yeah.
Maybe people are familiar with the Lizzie Borden murders, but they're infamous. And then, believe it or not, within months, in a place where there hadn't been a murder in 50 years, 3 miles away, a farm worker commits an axe murder just like Lizzie Borden did. And he has to investigate that. So he becomes really obsessed and shaken by these gruesome murders. And as a matter of fact, Clara Fowler's father, he believes, was a murderer also. And Clara Fowler had 2 siblings that died under suspicious circumstances. And Rufus Hilliard, Bassett, because they call it his nickname, because he's named after the Basset Hound. You know,
It's always like smelling and looking for
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
That's how I visualized him.
That's his nickname.
A true
Rufus
detective.
Bassett Hilliard is convinced that the father murdered Clara Fowler's brother and sister, and he wants her to be a witness against him. And when he gets to Boston, he finds out that she's under the care of Dr. Morton Prince and this team of physicians, famous, prominent physicians, because she displays all the symptoms of demonic possession.
And
so
you meet Bassett right in the beginning, because
Yeah.
I mean, the book just starts with like this death that just blows you away. You're like, what just happened? And he walks into the scene. So it's just crazy. It's so
very
good.
visual. It's very cinematic, and
Yes.
you know, obviously, I'm hopeful that that it becomes a film.
It's
certainly
so funny you say that, because the entire time I could see it in a movie. I could visualize it. I'm like, this is better than this show and that movie. It was.
Those are the best types of books, you know,
Yeah.
that you can visually picture.
Well,
it.
actually,
Yeah.
as I mentioned, I teach writing, and one of the things that I say, you know, is to create a storyboard, like with index cards.
Yeah.
This scene, this scene, and a book, a novel these days really should flow like a film.
Yep.
One scene should lead to the next, etc. And if you're very lucky, it all fits together in a kind of symmetry, you know, kind of
You
puzzle.
do that beautifully. You did that beautifully, because I think I was talking to one of my friends. I keep telling everybody, you have to wait until it comes out. But you're so into it, the chapters don't even matter. You're in a flow. So since I was reading it digitally, when it would end, it's like, oh, why is this page blank in between? Come on. Like, I don't care about the chapter, the name of the chapter. I was just so into the story.
Yes. And there's quite a bit of conflict between Prince, who's hell-bent on...
He's my favorite character, by the way.
Yeah, well, he's quite a character.
His
father was mayor of Boston.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, comes from a very prominent family. Again, Harvard, graduated #1 in his class, Harvard Medical School. But he hated Sigmund Freud, and they had this tremendous rivalry. Where psychiatry would go. Would it go towards psychoanalysis or behavioralism? And so he looked at this case as a way to steer people away from spiritualism and what he would call superstition and things like that, and into science, more scientific approach to things. But he had a rival on the team of physicians, and this was Hodgson, who was head of the Society of Psychical Researchers. And he and Hodgson have tremendous debates about what's real, what is reality. And
because Jesus comes to play. So there's this emotional fear that you have, like, okay, but if I say that the devil's not real, is he going to come and get me tonight? So, there's a lot that goes on in the story.
Well, I have a big question for you, since a lot of it involves spirituality. Did it impact you in any way? Did it impact your spiritual views? It
did. As a matter of fact, I can tell you, I wrote a book on alien abduction, and the similarities between alien abductions and demonic possession and angelic visitations, etc., is incredibly unique. They're very much tied. For example, when the demon presents itself in the Unwelcome through Clara Fowler, there's this tremendous smell of sulfur. Everybody talks about it. It's in all of the records. But I had a case of alien abduction that I studied and wrote about in Mojave Incident. And what do you think the people talked about? When the aliens came, this tremendous smell of sulfur or phosphorus.
Really?
And it seems to me that a lot of these UFO alien kind of things have a lot to do with spiritualism. And in both cases, you have the Virgin Mary in the Unwelcomed. But in the Mojave Incident, while these people are being tortured, literally, by these alien beings, an angelic presence makes itself known and says, don't worry, you'll survive this. Have faith in Jesus and you'll survive. And so these are two very different situations. One happened in
was it the 60s, I think?
Actually, 1989. One was 1989. That's the Mojave Incident. And this, of course, happened in 1898. But the similarities are very, very interesting. And what I've come to realize is that we have absolutely no idea of what's real. Our brains, Aldous Huxley says this in Doors of Perception, our brains are programmed through evolution to screen out reality. What we see is very superficial. So, for example, if you look at your face in the mirror, you'll see a face. And you'll say, well, okay, fine, there's a man, this is a woman, this is a handsome guy, this is not an attractive guy, et cetera, et cetera. But behind that face is the person.
Right.
And what Huxley says is, what we see, because we need to survive, to get food, to just water to survive, are the very superficial things, like you would see your face in the mirror. But behind all of those icons are thoughts. And for example, with a person, you love people, you have political views, you believe in religious views. There's a whole world much bigger than the superficial thing you see. And so what I've come to realize because of this research is that there is a spirit world, that there is a multidimensional world around us. And we have very limited sight into it. However, on rare occasions, there's a breakthrough. The curtain moves to the side momentarily for a glimpse into what really is real. Yeah.
That sounds like stuff you would talk about, Priya.
So I love this stuff. I love this stuff. So I'm writing a book about alien abduction. It's
really?
it's a sci-fi romance, and it's spicy, and it's about a middle-aged mom who's abducted. She's on the couch watching Walking Dead, and she's abducted by aliens, dropped on an alien planet, and has to deal with all these things, of people trying to control her powers, and all these different alien races.
Sounds great.
But it's not as in depth as what you're explaining here, you know.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting.
Real. I mean, this is real.
This
And
the real
again,
thing.
you have the chorus, Mercy, their letters. This demonic presence hates Clara Fowler.
Yes.
And
yes.
literally she would wake up and find claw marks up and down her back, bathed
And
in
words.
alcohol.
Oh my God.
She would find herself on top of furniture that had been paralyzed on top of furniture, naked, and just frozen in a position for hours on end. Just anything to tour. Her money would be ripped up.
Wait,
letters would.
are there like are there pictures or anything? Is there anything like to prove
Well, all of
things?
these big, well-renowned doctors documented all of this, and it's
Yeah.
all in the files.
Documented. But these experiences happened to her. So I mean, they have pictures of the wounds, not that I'm aware of. You know,
Right.
not that I'm aware of. But the doctor.
I do believe back.
God.
Yes, and I do believe that back then everything was painted, like because there's a portrait that they're making of him, and to document anything, they wanted to document. His wife wanted to gift him with a portrait of himself so that he would have it for generations.
Yeah,
to
which,
come.
by the way, if you go on the internet, you can see that portrait.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's so
And by
interesting.
the way, the other thing, you want to hear something else that will blow your mind, Priya? So Jack the Ripper actually wrote letters to Bassett, the detective.
What?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, in the Fall River Museum, they have a whole section devoted to Lizzie Borden, Juan Coriano, who was the other killer. And the letter that he got from Jack the Ripper is on display there. Isn't that amazing?
That's insane how they're all connected like that.
You don't even know the half of it until you read the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know the half of the connection.
And I
really
hesitate to give away too
I know, I feel the same. I wasn't even gonna bring it up.
Except to say that Fall River has a very sordid history, Even just, I think it was the 80s, they uncovered a satanic cult there, and it was headlines for quite some time. Well, I guess if there are portals, I was
about to say that. Is there a portal
to hell as well? And Fall River could well be one of those.
So I'm going to ask you a question, Ron, that I didn't have on my list of questions I wanted to ask you, but because of your explanation of your spirituality and what you've learned through the course of finding out all this information that you got hands on, there are devout Christians that when asked about aliens, right? Because I guess I personally challenged one during a recent trip. And I said, okay, but how are you going to tell me that this is real and this is real? And now this is happening. So what do you say about aliens and abductions and things of that nature, which of course they don't believe, but I'm saying this is factual. You know, there is documentation. This has happened. This exists. And they said, well, that's just the devil. So when they told me that at the time, I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And I let it go.
You let things go way too easily.
I guess so, because I let it go. But then when I was reading the book, I'm like, oh, wait a second.
Hold on, right?
There is a connection. Like, oh, that's not good.
There is a connection. And, actually, it's funny you should say that. And I'll try to be as discreet as I can. But the people that had been abducted became very religious and wound up moving to Salt Lake City and became Mormons, devout Mormons. And the bishop of the church told them exactly that they didn't have an encounter with aliens. They had an encounter with the devil.
Right.
Wow.
And And as you look at it, particularly in the Mojave Incident, where this angelic presence actually comes to these people and tells them, calm down, you'll make it, you will survive. And then you have these Marian visitations, these visitations for the Blessed Mother for Clara. And then you have these demonic beings, this sulfurous odor. There's just a lot of connections that are hard to explain and very strange, but impossible to ignore.
Right. Scary to admit.
Yeah. But maybe on the other side of things in this spiritual world is just like the regular world. Maybe there's good and there's evil. Maybe it's
like
really
everywhere.
simple.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I was going to also, my last thing about the book, because I don't want to give up anything, was that because you're talking about smells, right, and fragrances and things like that, the ether with the lavender took me by like, what?
Yeah.
The book is excellent. The book is
cool?
excellent. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a quote from Norman Mailer. It's very short, but this is what he said, and it might resonate with what we're talking about. He says, the devil might be a presence from another universe. We might be fighting an implacable enemy out there, and the devil might be the agent of the implacable enemy, with God as the tired general fighting that war with his own agents of hope.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what he's kind of saying is there's this battle going on, and as you know, when the devil speaks, it's pretty powerful. I mean, there's actually,
it's terrifying.
Yeah, like basically we fight for the souls, we fight, and they're great victories, and we celebrate those victories.
Absolutely.
Or we call it the devil, but it's like these super beings that have all these nefarious ways about them that are interacting with us in these ways.
Right.
But because we're humans.
When you read the book, you're going to get a lot more.
Well,
I can't wait.
Baudelaire says the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing people he didn't exist.
Right. Yeah. This is all in the book. It's so good.
I love it.
It's so good.
So I got to ask you, I have to ask you a writer question, because I know you did a lot of research for this book.
Yeah.
What advice would you give writers in this genre?
Yeah. Well, not just in this genre, but just
in general.
Yeah.
This is advice that Bill Blatty gave me. And one of the pieces of advice said you're dealing with sophisticated audiences these days. So what you could get away with, let's see, in a science fiction book or movie in the 50s, you could never get away with now, because you have a sophisticated audience.
Right.
And so write about what you know. And if you don't know it, research it. Research it so that it's credible and it anchors your story in reality. Because if people see through it and say, well, that isn't true, or that isn't true, it just destroys the credibility. The other is to read other writers and learn the techniques from them. And last, I think, is to be passionate about the story you're writing. So I have a class now, and halfway through, so I said, I don't really feel like writing this story anymore. Bill, before you get that far, whatever you're writing about, you should really be excited about. And because it's a bit of a marathon. It's writing a book is an endurance contest.
Oh, we know that now.
Yeah.
before we dove in, we had no idea. Now it's been years, and we're still at it. Every time we're like, okay, it's ready. Oh, no, go back.
Well, actually, my wife Ingrid, who you know, said to me just, I never had any idea how complicated all this is, writing a book, etc. The research that goes into it. But literally, this story was 50 years in the making. And the story before it had really been concealed by the medical establishment, probably for 100 years, since that time, because they didn't want this. It really is. Blatty called it the best documented case of demonic possession he'd come across in his research.
And I know that we're wrapping this up, but I have so many questions, so I'm just going to ask one more. When he wrote The Exorcist, I'm going to assume, clearly, he already knew about the case of Clara's case.
Yes.
But he wrote The Exorcist as a fiction.
Yeah.
Not as a factual movie. Was he inspired by Clara's story when he wrote The Exorcist?
Two stories. This was one, and the other happened it's a little like my story with him. He read in the Washington Post, I guess it was still called the Washington Post then. This would have been in like 59 or so when he was a student at Georgetown. And there was an article about, a small article about a boy in Maryland that suffered from demonic possession, and how the Jesuits had converged and hospitalized him and worked with him and performed an exorcism, etc. It was a small article. He was so intrigued by it, he put it in his wallet. It just stayed there for years and years. He was a comedy writer, and then in the late 60s, early 70s, he said, you know, I'm not making enough money. I'm not making a living writing comedy anymore because tastes have changed. I'm going to try something dramatic. And he pulled his little article out of his wallet.
That was pretty dramatic.
And that was the beginning of The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
It's a staple in the movie industry.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's funny how things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
full circle, full circle. So thank you so much, Ron, for being our first
Yes.
My pleasure.
guest for Books and Martinis. This sounds like an amazing story. I know Mercy read it already, but now I have to.
So excited. Oh, you
I
have
have to read it because it sounds amazing.
Well, I hope you
Yes.
enjoyed it. I'm very honored to be the first guest on your show. So thank you. I wish you much
That's our
success
way.
with it.
Thank you, Ron. We appreciate
Okay.
it.
Great seeing you.
And you'll see us on Instagram. So we'll
Yeah,
be
so
talking
Ron,
to everybody
really
about-
quick, if anybody wants to find your book, it's coming out March 15th on Amazon.
It'll be Amazon. It'll be Barnes and Noble. The
And with-
Unwelcomed, The Curious Case of Clara Fowler. I do have a cover, and this would be the cover. So
Beautiful,
Beautiful.
beautiful. So make sure you check it out, guys. Like, share, follow. We'll put all the information in our summary to contact Ron, to reach out to him, to check out his book. And again, thank you so much for listening and for watching our latest YouTube episode.
That's it. See you
Thank you,
later,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Ron.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.